with my first session, if I may. I'm trying to share right now, and I believe you already see it.
Sir, Justice has joined.
Sorry?
Justice Mukete has joined.
Okay, very well. Hello to Mr. Mukete. May I start?
I think you please give him a chance to just say hello.
Of course, no problem.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning to everybody, Mr. Chairman, all protocol respected. We are sorry for the slight delay due to internet connection. Please.
Sir, please click your video.
Where is it?
Sir, click your video, please. Show your video.
So me or Mr. Mukete? Who are you talking to?
I think his connection is gone.
Okay.
Yeah, he is visible now.
Hello?
Yes, sir, you please speak.
Yeah, can you see me now? Okay. Can you see me now? My video is on. Sorry.
Yes, you are seen. Please go ahead.
Okay, I am saying that I am sorry for the slight delay because of connectivity problems. And I invite you and all of you on behalf of technical session group 7-2. As the program indicates, I have the honor and the privilege to welcome all of you, the experts, the whole academic community, students and professionals, and all the experts. I will like to hand over to the co-chair, Dr. Ogrin, who is going to conduct the session. I will come back at the end for any remarks and any closing ideas and the way forward. Thank you very much.
Justice Mukete is online from Cameroon, and he is from very remote area, so we were having the inconvenience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ogrin, over to you, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mukete. And I also welcome also the rest of the participants, lecturers already taking place in this session. May I start? Probably I may, okay. Can you see the presentation right now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Sure.
Okay. So I will have two actually presentations, one after another, in this, I would say, Slovenian packet. And I will start as a Alpine identity as a tool for sustainability. It will be, of course, a story presented from Slovenian case, and at the end we will see how mountain identity could be transferred as a tool for sustainability. On the picture, it's Mount Triglav, which will be very much explained as a part of national mountain symbolism. So I was 6 years ago when I was starting our research with my colleague Peter Mikša from Slovenia, from the Department of History, discussing with my Swiss friend of mine whether Alpine identity does exist or not. And she, by my surprise, she said, "I'm sure that Alpine identity does not exist," even though she works and lives in the Alps. And it was totally different from our convenience that we really were already discussing and made some research how some symbolism and also some elements of identity, especially in Slovenian nation, are actually very much attached to the mountains. And that's why it gave us even more, I would say, push to make some research how the mountains could be a part of national identity. And of course, not only in Slovenia, all over the world, mountains could be seen as a backdrop or a place of myths and legends. So mountains are a very good place for mythology, for legends. Why is it so? Because mountains are usually far away from the very highly densely populated areas. Mountains are even today still areas that people cannot control. And mountains are close to God, are close to the Holy Spirit, are close to something holy, something beyond. And this is very important for perception of space for human society. But it is not necessarily that this mythology is brought into the national identity. So we have mountain identity, of course we have identity of some mountain nation, but not necessarily this is brought into the national symbolism. So in Slovenia, we made even step further. This is a tower on the top of Mount Triglav. This is the highest mountain in Slovenia. I've showed it on the first picture. And this mountain is really a symbol of Slovenia because it reminds us on the so-called symbolic fight between Slovenians and the Germans and also later Italians. So it was not a real war, so to say, but it was a symbolic fight in the second half of the 19th century and the start of the 20th century. Who will climb the mountains first? Who will conquer the peaks? Who will build the highest hut in the mountains? Who will bring more national identity, whether it's going to be German or whether it's going to be Slovenian, in the mountains? Why this was the case? Because at that time Slovenia was still a part of Austro-Hungarian Empire. When the Germans, Austrians were on power, were the main, so the richest and of course the most important political force. But on the other hand, there are many different nations, and in the part of southeastern Alps, of course, Slovenians lived. And nowadays we say that this is probably the most important infrastructure in Slovenian, symbolic infrastructure in Slovenian mountains. And we also say that this tower has a soul of Slovenian identity. And as our colleague Velikonia said, Slovenians, a little bit ironically, are so proud of Mount Triglav as if they would build it themselves. So not as if it would be naturally formed mountain, but as if it would be, I don't know, a statue or a sculpture or something like this. If we proceed, we know that Slovenians today see the mountains as a symbol of their country and nation. We see themselves as a mountain nation, conservative, founded in the valleys and periphery. And if we see the national symbols, this is the coat of arms of the former Socialist Republic of Slovenia, which was a part of Socialist Yugoslavia. We see that this is already a shape of Triglav. Triglav means three heads, three peaks. And among them, the middle peak, it's actually the highest. So this is the feature of the Triglav. And even today, symbolism of national Republic of Slovenia, we also find the coat of arms with the shape of Triglav. And we put this coat of arms also in the national flag. We cannot say that this is the unique example in the world. We also have countries like Slovakia in Europe. Also Montenegro used to have this coat of arms with Mount Lovćen, and also in some other parts like Latin American countries have the same, are the same example or similar example. But if one nation puts a mountain in the most important national symbols, it is definitely not done by coincidence, but it should be something very much related with mountain identity. And among several other nations, Slovenia is also one of them. And of course, I'm showing the picture 30 years ago. I will come back to this picture again a little bit later. This is a picture of days of independence in Slovenia. When Slovenia announced independence, it was in June 1991. And as a very important sign to the nation was that Slovenian alpinists climbed the Triglav at that time and symbolically put the flag on the top of our highest mountain as a marcation of the space. So as a newborn of country has been done. And this was really a so this picture had a very important meaning for the rest of the nation, seeing that, yes, this is our land and this is our symbol. So it was not a coincidence that alpinists choose the highest mountain. Instead, maybe they could choose the capital or maybe some seasides or other very important areas, but no, they choose the mountain. Okay, dealing with identity, it's something very important for the nation how to express. And of course, many nations express through the sports. It's nothing new. But what is important in Slovenian example is that we identify ourselves much more with winter or so alpine or mountain related sports than to another sports which are in general much more popular and also popular in Slovenia, as I will show later. But when we are discussing about alpine skiing, about also Nordic skiing, which was transferred in the alpine area in Slovenia, or alpinism, I can definitely say that sporters of, nevertheless, whether they are women or men, are actually a national hero. And of course, we cannot say that these sports are the most famous sports in the Europe and also in the other nation. People listening today, this lecture from Asia, from Africa, from other mountains of the world, usually don't really compete in these alpine sports. But for Slovenia, as a part of identity, this part of sport, it's very, very important, not only as a sport activity, but also as a sport events, because sport events related with alpine area, like alpine skiing, ski jumping, are actually the national holidays. We see the tradition of organizing World Cup events in this area is like 60, 70, 80 years. And it is no surprise that the biggest public event in Slovenia, it's the ski jumping World Cup in Planica each March, so at the end of winter. Actually, the ski flying, not ski jumping, ski flying discipline was invented in Slovenia, and now it's also a discipline of World Cup, FIS ski World Cup tour, so each year. But it's very important for each Slovenian, especially important person, not only sport delegates, but also politicians and VIPs, that they are a part of this ceremony each year or almost each year, because it comes with Slovenian national identity. And it's not a question whether these events will take place or not. It's just how we will proceed our tradition on. But now, if we step in the other sports, so we see that competition jerseys of Slovenian national team, whether it's a football or volleyball or basketball or ice hockey, they all bring this shape of three hats, which is actually a shape of Triglav. So this symbolism was brought also to different sports, no matter that actually they don't really have nothing to do with mountains, with Alps, but it's very normal for Slovenia competition jerseys that you see, of course, green color as a green country, but with this shape of Triglav. So the symbolism was brought in each day sport activities, especially when we are discussing about national level. For instance, this jersey was dressed 2 weeks ago at European volleyball competition. And again, we see this Triglav or mountains as a part of Slovenia national identity. Also, Slovenian alpine infrastructure, as far as sport is concerned, it's very much related with national identity, even though these labels, these trademarks are not maybe the most important in the world or in the Alps, but we consider them as our labels, as our trademarks. And of course, we are proud of them. So it's quite a long story behind each of these labels. I don't have time to explain it in details, but we consider this also infrastructure, tools, equipment as something which is a part of Slovenian identity, even though it's actually a very small part of alpine part of, I don't know, winter activities or summer. Speaking of identity, it's also speaking of culture. And it's very interesting, when the first Slovenian feature film, when the movie industry actually started in 1931, the producers decided to take a story from the mountains. So in the kingdom of the Golden Horn, in the kingdom of the Gold Horn. It's a very known story, but even though that at that time also movies about national identity were very important, or about some important battles, if you see the movies of other nations and so on, our producers decided for the mountain as a part of Slovenian identity. And if you know something about this movie making industry in the 30s, this was so-called era of so-called Bergfilm, which came from the German-speaking area, which is of course close to Slovenia. And it really goes how people conquer the mountains, how they climb, how strong they are, how brave they are. And this area or this period of 30s of the 20th century, it's also, so there were also other movies dedicated or related with mountain topics from Slovenia. And of course, now when we look back, we see that it was not a coincidence that producers decided for mountain topics. Also, for instance, the oldest Slovenian periodical publication, which still comes out each month, is Slovenian Mountain Bulletin. Even though we have, like in any other parts of the world, many other bulletins, some of them are old, some of them are new, but the Mountain Bulletin was the only publication that comes out since 1895. Only in the Second World War, I think there was a year or two with no issues, but the continuity is actually still going on. And this is just a print screen from the 30th of August in Slovenian. I will try to describe it. This is our president, Slovenian national president, and this is the editor of Slovenian Mountain Bulletin. And president is giving the Order of Honor, so a very good, I would say, award or recognition to this bulletin as a very important part of Slovenian mountain and national heritage, because it is coming, as a bulletin has not been, so it's continuously coming out for last 25 years. And of course, we cannot say that each Slovenian home has this bulletin, no, but still it has remained through all this politically, economically, and also in other terms, very different changes of and times of last 125 years, and it's still coming out each month. Then, if we take a look at the mountain literature, like travel guides, maps, philosophical literature, poetry, aesthetics, and so on, if you will visit any of Slovenian major bookstores or even libraries, you will always find a department for mountain-related topics. And this department, it's much bigger than, for instance, other sports or other activities, which it's not necessarily the result of the, I would say, last 10 or 15 years, because we had also many successful, not only sport successes, but also according in other activities on international level, also in the other fields of human society. But still, there are unreasonably high share of mountain literature in each important bookstore on the national level. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know polka national songs that are coming from the Alps. Interesting is that the most prominent and the most famous polka group comes from Slovenia, so-called Avsenik Brothers Ensemble, and they are a part of Slovenian culture, Slovenian identity. And you can see this the founder Slavko Avsenik of this group with a Slovenian president as on one of his jubilees. And even though we cannot say that each Slovenian, of course, is listening to polka, it would be exaggerating, but we all recognize it as a part of Slovenian culture, as a part of Slovenian identity. And of course, most of the population accept it as something very normal, which is not the case, for instance, in countries eastern or southern from Slovenia. Also the movie industry, I already talked about movie industry like 90 years ago, but even today, as a producer, you can't miss much if you make a mountain movie. Of course, there are different varieties for youth and for also different target groups. But even today, we have almost each decade new mountain movies. Also, international movie festivals are in Slovenia, and we all consider this as something very normal. Even though we have to admit that these mountains are over-dimensionized in our cultural space, but of course, this is because of the connection with identity. And now I will go back over 30 years ago, when Slovenia, it was still a part of Yugoslavia, started a tourism campaign. It was originally planned as a tourism campaign about preservation of tourism or developing tourism, of course, developing economy. But it turned out that this commercial presentation was actually very much a presentation to raise Slovenian national identity. And why it was the case, we will not see it right now because we don't have time, but you can take a look at it later or take a look of it later. And the funny thing after short analysis was that the advertisement starts in the mountain, and then it comes in the mountain again in second 29, and then it comes back in the mountains again after it goes on the seaside in urban space, again in minutes and 2 seconds, and it finishes in the mountain. So even though today we are sure that the producers of this advertisement didn't want to show Slovenia as a mountain country, but Slovenia as a tourist developing country and very nice or hospitable to the tourists, it turned out that it was actually a commercial for Slovenia as a mountain country. And now I will skip on the so-called digital identity. I already showed this picture a few slides ago, and on this June, so June of this year, when Slovenia celebrated 30th anniversary, you see that this is a digital visualization of actually this photo. I don't know who made it, but it's definitely a message that Slovenia, when it is celebrating the most important national holiday, so shows a picture of mountain of Triglav and of course of Slovenian flag. And again, this is a national document of Slovenian development strategy, 4 years old. Not important to describe it right now, but the PR of this document, as you can see, is actually was put in the mountain region. And for instance, Vision of Slovenian Development, again, starts as a PR movie for this document, starts in the movies. So we really see that mountains are, when we are describing Slovenia, all around. I also made a little bit of survey. If you Google Slovenia and you translate it in Chinese, I hope the Google translated it okay. You see in the first row are actually pictures from the mountains. The very right picture on the first row, it's not Slovenia, but okay, I don't know where it's come from. But the first pictures on Google internet webpage, whether you dial Slovenia in Chinese or even in English, are actually from the mountains. Okay, in English, then we have here Ljubljana, and again, mountains, 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 again, Ljubljana, mountains, mountains. So it's also interesting how others sees us and how this, I would say, digital identity is also attached to the mountains. And of course, if we conclude this part, we can say that there are many, many proofs of presence of Alpine identity of Slovenes. And also this picture, maybe you know this very known story of Heidi, which was also filmed by Disney. This is a Swiss story about living in the mountains, about young girl and so on. But actually a very parallel story comes from Slovenia. It was not a copy of Heidi. It was written independently, and also we can see that there are some similarities. So a small generation against the old generation, transfer of the experiences and living in the mountains. So maybe unique Alpine identity does not exist, but we are definitely sure that at least in our parts, in Slovenian part of the Alps, Alpine identity does exist. But can we really explain this identity through the alpinity, through the geographical indicators of Slovenian mountains. In fact, we have to find out that Slovenia is a very low country, as you see. And among over 160 world countries, we are ranking only at 69th place as far as the average elevation is concerned. And if we take a look at hypsometry of Slovenia, only 2.5 of national territory lies above 1,500 meters, and only 0.5% of national territory lies above 2,000 meters. And even worse, if I may say so, is the situation of inhabitants in the mountains. Only 11% of Slovenian population lives above 500 meters, and less than 1%, only 2 promille of population lives above 1,000 meters. So how to explain this attachment to the mountains? Well, it is mainly the result of activities, perceptions, values and value system, and of course, positive collective experiences with mountains or mountain-related activities. And societies which live and love the mountains, so not only live in the mountains, but accept mountains as something positive, they accept mountains as a part of their identity, and therefore they can build a positive attitude towards the mountains. And of course, this is very important for collective and proactive acceptance of mountain area as a homeland, which now more than ever before needs to be taken care of. And this is also a very important prerequisite for taking action on environment and nature protection of the mountain regions. Thank you very much for your attention. So I will proceed with with another lecture, if I may, and now I will for a few seconds shift myself into a moderator. But we will now skip to a topic of mountain-oriented education. So this is the second topic of our presentation of my colleagues, again from Faculty of Arts, Department of Geography. So now when we were discussing a little bit about mountain identity, it was a very important task for us how to transfer these contents of mountain identity to the youth. In 2016, excuse me, can you see the share? Can you see the screen? No, you
Not
can't.
yet, please.
Not yet.
Please share,
Okay,
yes.
I will make a new share, of course. Now I think you will see it. Yes. So the question was how to transfer this knowledge and also this story to the youth. Because in the Interact project, Your Alps, which was taking place from 2016 to 2019, our background or starting point was that the mountain, and also in this, during this field school, summer school, we have heard this many times, that mountain ecological systems are very important, ecological system and so on. But on the other hand, youth, so young and not only young generations, are losing contact with nature. This is all around the world the case because more and more people are living in the cities, and we are more and more, or less and less, working in farming or in the forestry and so on, this nature-based activities. And we are facing increasing disconnection between youth and mountain environment, lack of alpine or mountain natural and cultural heritage, and of course, loss. Well, I will discuss here about alpine identity because I come from alpine land, but I'm sure that this is very much the case also with mountain identity in many other regions. So we decided to combine education for sustainable development and environmental education together and try to form the basis for so-called mountain-oriented education, MOE. And MOE emphasizes the interrelations between the mountain regions and society. So this is very short definition. I will not explain it in details right now because we don't have time. But now I will proceed with which was actually a conclusion of first summer school that we had in 2016. So what are the baseline for implementing the mountain-oriented education at the youth, so with the youth generation? So first and very important is so-called kinesthetic information that we have to transfer to the young generation with so-called activation of all senses, not only visualization, which is now very modern through this indoor and remote sensing, whatever this means in very wide term, but you really have to feel the mountains, touch the mountains, play the mountains, smell the mountains if you want, or hear the mountains, experience different mountain cultures, different mountain types, compete the mountains if you want, or work in the mountains. So you really have to get a very strong spatial experience, which of course has to be positive. It has to be deeper and deeper. What does this mean? It means that it starts somewhere with age of 3 or maybe 6, but once you are in there, you just develop your experience with mountain nature, with mountain culture, with mountains, and you actually never stops. Of course, in different periods of your lifetime, mountains are presenting a different field of your interest. You don't look the same on the mountains at the age of 5 or at the age of 55 or maybe 75. But the fact, the most important thing is that it is a process that actually never ends. So once you step in this, I would say, process, you just develop and develop it more and more, and you never actually step off this train, so-called. Very important to understand when you are doing with the youth is that the young generations, aging 15, maybe less, were born into digital world. We understand the digital world, so the elderly, but we were not born into so they are so-called digital aborigines, but we are not. And they cannot think of the world, at least for the most of the world, we can say so, that the world would be without internet and other connections. And it is very wrong if we decide that when they come in the mountains that they are not allowed to use them, because we will take away a part of their identity. However, it is our task and our duty to transfer this knowledge and this way of use, all these gadgets and digital devices and everything and skills, to develop and to develop the mountain experience, and of course to develop their experience with mountains, which has to be positive. So, and also we have to be aware of that the mountain-oriented education is always a two-way process. Maybe we think, since we are older, that we know everything, but the young generations always, even the old knowledge, represent us in a new form, but I'm sure that most of us are convinced that they also bring new ideas, new aspects of what mountains could be. And it's definitely important to know that we are learning as much from them as they, of course, are getting from us. Not the same content, but the process is two-way. How does the real outdoor adventure look like? Here we decide, so we agree that there is one problem of so-called photo visualization, and because many times the first experience, not only with mountain nature, goes via internet channels, via these digital information channels. And of course, as we used to say 30 years ago, the sun always shines on TV. There's always sun always shining on these commercial photo channels via internet. And there's also one thing: this is only activation of visualization from your computer, your mobile phone, your home, and so on. This is not what the experience of the mountaintop, of the mountain reach, of the mountain is like. Because when you're in the mountains, you feel winds, you are cold, you are hot, you are sweated, and so on and so on. And this is a very big difference, because most of the people see the best of some situation on the internet, and they are not aware that the experience is much more different. So activation of senses, if I return back to one of the first slides, it's very important. And so, of course, when we will go out, are we waiting on the sun? In Slovenia, there's a trend in the last 20 years that also teachers more and more, so they're less and less willing to go out if there is just partly cloudy. They are already afraid of rain. They're not afraid of heavy storms, which could be, of course, also danger, but they are afraid that the weather will be cloudy so that we will not get the very sunny photos and the sunny experience, which, of course, we think it's wrong. It's nothing wrong to go out in sunny weather. It's nice. We have beautiful views. We have nice pictures. Also, not only youth, everyone is more satisfied and usually willing to play, and it's okay with this. But it's a shame if we are only waiting to go out in the sun, especially in the mountains, because we know that the mountains are areas where the clouds are born, where the rain is born, so areas with more precipitation. And in many times, in all areas around the mountains, we have sunny weather, but in the mountains, it's at least partly cloudy or even cloudy. As a geographer, I can say that we will only see the minor part of natural processes, and many of them, of course, are of small intensity. But on the other hand, if we go out, we say no matter weather, but I will discuss about rainy weather, of course, on the safe side. So we do not push luck and we don't put ourselves or our clients, students into a danger. But if we go out in the rain or in the snow, of course, we will discover many other dimensions of nature, natural processes and phases of nature. We can definitely discover or learn how the streams are born, how the heavy rain comes, and how the snow cover forms within several hours. For instance, we can discover this hidden beauty of the nature that is most of the time very close to us, but it will remain hidden if we will only wait on the sunny side, on the sunny weather. If we are well prepared, we can also discover our limitations. And I can assure you that if the trip is well prepared, that this will be a very strong and very positive experience of the mountain world, not only for these young people who were with us on the field, but also when they transfer this experience to the others. So they are not like crazy ones who are pushing their luck and put their health in danger, but they really want to discover the mountains. Of course, also the rain, it's not necessarily something very, very dangerous and very negative if we prepare the young generations that, of course, we also have to see the nature in the rainy weather. And of course, as I'm trying to say, that it's not now that we only wait on the rainy weather. It's not now that you only wait on the sunny weather, but we just have to accept the nature, the mountain nature, as it is. And this is really very important. And only then we will start to love the nature just as it is, and without waiting I would say, the appropriate weather to come. And of course, if we go out in almost each weather circumstance, we can at the end also experience the sun, if we make it a little bit comical. And we can finally understand this very beautiful song, Colors of the Wind, that I'm sure you all know. And that, of course, the hidden secret of nature, of mountains, reveals us that the nature is actually beautiful and perfect in any kind of condition. And this is very important if we manage to transfer this, I would not say knowledge, but this perception to the youth, so they really accept the nature in all its shapes that are actually very interesting, and they can also adapt to a different situation, and their perception will be much more holistic, as it is if you only go in the mountains, I don't know, in August, when there is a hot wave and clear weather for 2 weeks, also in the Alps. So this was actually the first part of my second presentation. And now I will only go through the 7 steps of how to implement Alpine School model, which is also the result of this project. And I would try to emphasize here that, again, even though we are discussing about Alpine School, this model can be transferred in any other, or maybe it already was, transferred in any other mountain areas, but since it was we were working in the Alps, we call it Alpine School model. Okay, so this is, as I said, how to form activities in, of Alpine School in 7 steps, and there will be like 7-step approach. First of all, it's very important for us who are school teachers, school workers, who come from formal education institutions, that we combine our knowledge with a knowledge of informal education. So mountains are spaces of protected areas, and most or many protected areas have their information or education service. Connect with them. We have scouts and other interest groups that are also working, living with children in the nature, also in the mountains. We have to combine all the forces, all the knowledge, all the skills together, and we should not exclude everyone, because only this is the way how the very holistic, not only information is provided to the youth, but experience is provided to the young generation. So this was the first step that we agreed on, and we find it as very important. The second step, we have to define key mountain sustainable development topics. These topics are not necessarily the same in all mountain regions of the world. They are not necessarily the same even in one mountain region between different valleys. Some valleys have problems with depopulation. Some valleys, very close to this one, have problems with growing density of activities and so on. So we have to examine the topics in our environment and of course set the project goals. Why we have choose this topic and what is our goal. And okay, the second line I will come back a little later, so not to lose time here. The third step, it's one of so-called what questions. It's the values. So we have to provide values of sustainable development in the mountains. So not only facts, not only methods, but the values. Because teaching about the environment and education about the environment, it's at the end of the day, it's about the values. So what do we think it's good? What do we think it's useful? And how do we provide this durability of our existence? And how do we provide, of course, existence of other biodiversity and nature? So at the end of the day, we are discussing about the values. And we really have to take our time for discussion about values. What are the important values? And there should be so-called value-based approach. And now, right, we should encourage the learners to evaluate their baseline or our baseline values and compare them with the values of sustainable development in the Alps. Why is this important? Because the Alpine School model, it's not a static model. Everyone that comes in this model changes it. It's proactive structure that could be more and more complex, and it's developing not only with time, but also with the number of participants and also with space. So they all proactively cooperate in this process. Of course, it's very important that we define competences of sustainable development in the Alps or in the mountains. We have to define the knowledge and skills, and again, the competences. So what our students, pupils, children will be capable of. Is it only a basic knowledge? Is it a solution of problems? Is it proactive solution of problems, or is it giving new ideas, or what? This is also a very important step for teachers. And again, they compare them with the existence structure of Alpine School model. And as I already tried to mention some slides ago, the mountains, the mountain landscape, the mountain nature, it's too complex, it's too diverse, it's too interesting that only one field of science, one field of experts could explain it. So the mountains are, as we were definitely convinced, and we are sure of, one of the best natural classrooms or living labs, if you want. So we should also include as much as possible interdisciplinary experts or scientists into the process. There's a rainbow of natural and social sciences that are very interesting in mountain research, as actually we are discussing about for 1 week already now. And it is very important that even though maybe one expert comes from field of biology or geography, that this is not the final step of the whole contents that we will, or the final content that we will transfer to the youth generation. But we have to connect, we have to make a group of different disciplines, and we have to see the mountain landscape as a holistic lab, as a holistic system, and of course try to explain in multidisciplinary approach. This is very important. This is one of the, also as the first step, so important as the first step when I was talking about combining formal and informal education. As far as the methods are concerned, so I would emphasize here 2 methods. First is to take a learner-centered approach. So let the learner lead the way how to get knowledge. So how to discover or how to discover new facts or new knowledge from the mountains, or how to become a new scientist. Of course, he needs a mentor, he needs a leader, but don't put him in the passive position, only hearing and reading and using the internet. And of course, very important, go outside. Include outdoor learning activities and techniques. It's nothing wrong if you prepare a group in the classroom. It's nothing wrong if you go through these cabinet methods at the beginning, also using digital channels. Of course, we need them. We can't live without them anymore. But what the mountains are all about is to get the experience in the mountains. And as I already mentioned before, not only sunny experience. And the last, how? Well, don't hesitate too much. Just go outside, get in touch, get in contact with other project leaders, with other educational workers, formal and informal. Try to connect within your region, mountain region, or necessarily not the mountain region, could be the region outside of the mountain area who have some particular interest to do something in the mountains. So just take the action. And of course, you can also establish your networks within your area. There are many mountains of the world. The Alps are actually one of the smallest. If we take a look the whole planet, and I'm sure that many other mountain areas, as many of you have already shown in the previous presentations, that they really have a lot to show off. So I will end my presentation right here. And of course, if you have any questions or discussions, we can also discuss about it. And I think we are also a little bit, we still have some time. So yes, I'm here. And anyhow, I will moderate this session further on. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay. Now I see we are okay. We are good with time. May I see there's some comments. Okay, thank you too. I will use these 5 minutes to go to the next lecture, if I may. Mr. Sandor Koles, I see you are already with us. You are still muted.